Come on down to the Law Student Lounge with your host, attorney Ryan McKeen, where law students like you tell their stories. So pull up a chair and join us in the lounge.
Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be here today. I am here with Shane Crowley. Shane is a 1L evening student at New England School of Law. Hi, Shane.
Hi. It's nice to be here. Thanks so much for having me on.
So nice. So nice to have you on. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I am, again, a 1L. Thanks for the introduction there. And I am in the evening program. I have a full-time job currently. I'm in legal technology sales, and that really describes my background pretty well as well. Heading out of undergrad at College of the Holy Cross, I majored in history there. Came out with a strong interest in law. I have a lot of family members that, throughout the country practice in law. And after bending their ear for a bit, I decided to get into sort of an interim, selling to lawyers, learning about the business of law, what it takes as far as, relationships throughout the industry. And I started my career in court reporting, selling remote solutions. And now I'm into e-discovery, all aspects of investigations, case build out. So it's been an interesting perspective, and yeah, it's made me very excited for this next chapter here.
Yeah, so that is awesome. I'm a history major, and I have a very intense interest in legal technology and where this is all going. And I also think, like, every lawyer would benefit from having a sales background. I always tell lawyers, I'm like, we are in a sales business. At the end of the day, you have to convince a client to do something. You have to convince a colleague to do something. You have to convince a judge to do something. And basic sales skills will serve you well. They certainly have in my career. I worked at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, and I was trained on selling the insurance that nobody wants when they go and buy a car, or they go and rent a car. So sales experience is really important. Can you talk about were you drawn to legal tech, or is it just something you fell into?
And it's funny you say that mirrors the feedback that my whole family gave me, which was, develop some of these professional skills first while you can, because you'll be studying and, in the weeds of law. And I wanted to, be prepared on the sales side of things. Legal tech really presented a good opportunity because it's, in many firms, it's an intimate aspect of how they do business. Legal tech really runs the gamut. And by learning about legal tech, you can learn a lot about the internal workings of the firm. I did kind of stumble into it actually at first at Robert Half, where I was putting together legal teams for reviews, selling those as, temporary assistance to law firms if they have to scale up for large projects. So identifying stuff through that, and ultimately found that legal tech, a very hot button topic of interest at a lot of firms, and started scouring the markets, finding out who were, interesting leaders in that place, how I could learn more, and really how I could develop a knowledge set that would be a benefit to, a future firm I land at.
I think a ton about this. It's probably where I spend like most of my week, actually, because I'm now the CEO of this firm and I need to lead it through growth and future. And really, in so many ways, like I think of us as a tech firm that delivers legal services. And so the name of the game is really optimizing one's tech stack to deliver better results for clients and for, our attorneys who have the tools at their disposal to do their job quickly and efficiently, so they can be home and they can be at baseball practice with their kids, and we can provide as a firm good health insurance. And I can't get back to solving that problem without legal technology. And why I think that that's interesting is I'm really actually concerned that law schools are so far behind in terms of what the skills are needed for the future. Look, when I went to law school, like learning how to blue book and cite and research and process case law and all that stuff was incredibly important, and be a great writer and write briefs, right? And right now, I mean, I was playing around with Westlaw's generative AI tool that they released last week, and I'm like, this is good. It's only going to get better. And, what are law schools doing with this? And the answer I know, which is nothing. But like, what is it that they're, the skills I think lawyers and law students need to be trained on going forward in the future? One of which is project management skills. I think it comes down to your ability to manage a team, to manage a project, to marshal resources, to navigate external and external forces. I think it comes down to the ability to strategize, the ability to communicate with clients, and the ability to leverage technology to accomplish all of those things. So gone are the days where I think the people who are most successful coming out of law school are the ones who are amazing at writing notes and doing blue book, because I think the practice of law is changing so fundamentally that it's not going to be, finding the right legal answer. It's going to be like, so what do you do with that? And can you convince your client or you convince a judge that this is the right thing? And so it's sort of like, look, you could drive a car, but where do you want to go with it? And I think, too often law school is teaching people how to like build cars.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And, I think it's an interesting place for the schools to be in as well. It's a lot of the most exciting AI is, there's some apprehension around some of it for the time being. I'm sure as the future unfolds, we'll get a clearer understanding of exactly where use cases are proper and that kind of thing. But ultimately, it is going to have a large impact. And, I think the schools weigh the classical understanding of how things should go and what people should, intricately be aware of, while also understanding that some of this workflow is probably not what they're going to be spending as much of their time as they may have previously been, doing. I've heard a lot about that Lexis tool. It sounds very interesting. And I think, regarding the PM aspect, I see that very, very consistently throughout my work. I'm often talking to attorneys who are putting together game plans for cases, actively managing ongoing matters. And it's funny how intertwined those project management skills can be with technology. You do need a pretty substantive awareness of that. So yeah, that's an interesting point to bring up. I do see that so frequently. And the pressure from clients and just the employees of a firm has, I think, increased and probably will increase, where, attorneys like the solutions, especially, younger attorneys that are exposed to new technology at the beginning of their practice. They really like firms that can sort of, adjust to that, provide them workflows that are most efficient for them. And we're seeing clients often too, starting to look into things about how case teams can be more efficient through technology. So there's definitely those aspects of the pressure as well.
Yeah, here's what I think. I mean, I this is a really interesting place to take this conversation. I'm so glad you're on this podcast, and I know people who are listening out there, this is going to be so valuable to them, even if it's a little bit different than what we usually do, because I spend almost all of my time thinking about legal technology and where it's going and how we need to use it and where we should be adapting, and also just like general technology, because like there's like widely amazing consumer technology, right? So we were before this call, we're rebuilding our website, and the web company had sort of a final draft for us to go through, and we had some feedback. And so instead of hopping on a Zoom call, me and my marketing director, we sat down, we had a Loom call, and we went through the website, and we said this, that, this. It then summarizes what we said to them. It then makes chapters on what we said. It edits out the ums and ahs. It speeds it up to 1.2, and we send it off. And so our team is, one of them is in Utah, another of them is in California. I don't know. It's they could be having breakfast right now for all I know, but they have that video that they can watch in an asynchronous way, and that's just Loom.ai. That's freely usable. I think it's probably $14 a month license, which we use. And there's so many of these tools, Grammarly being another one, that are just amazing. And what I see is, I think that the problem with technology up until this year, up until this moment in time, really, the end of this year, which is we're recording this in 2023, is technology has not made people's lives easier. So yes, it is somewhat easier to send an email than to go to the mailbox. But all of a sudden you have 10 emails instead of one letter, and nobody is spending less time like corresponding. They're actually, in fact, spending like more time. But when you start to look at these generative AI products and the ability to summarize and generate and guide and serve as assistants, like, whoa, is it incredible? Whoa, is it easy to use? And so like there is just a huge sea change that are going out there. In like you're 1L evening student, so presumably you'll get licensed in like 2027. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the goal.
So the products that are going to change, the technology that's going to change, like I don't even think that anybody can see that far. But know that like if you're in law school, like you need to really pay attention to legal technology. Like I don't know how you do it if your law school offers a class. I just taught a class at Suffolk University with Gabe Tenenbaum, who's amazing in like their innovation lab and talking about this. But go find that stuff out. Talk to like the most important conversations you could have could be like with your Westlaw vendors on how to use
Yeah.
some of this stuff, because you're going to come out into firms that may or may not know how to do this, and like those skills are going to be incredibly important. I mean, does this play into how you're looking at law school at all, or what it is that you want to do when you get out?
Yeah, that this plays directly into it. So I would say that, it poses an interesting opportunity for current law students, which is there's so much happening. I can only say that I've seen honestly thousands of legal tech companies come out in the last few years. And really, I think to some extent, we're actually seeing a storm before the calm, if so to speak, because, right now it's a bit fuzzy. We can see the impact, we can see the potential. I think a lot of firms are starting to hone in on, exactly where these workflows are going to go in the future. But I think that it's a great opportunity for any students to really study that market impact, what's occurring, where it's successful, where it's not successful, how to institute that. A lot of these phenomenal applications allow for certifications, trainings, really in-depth project management, data understanding. I think that's going to be something that this generation of law students can focus on to bring as value to any future firms they come to that may, in their busy day-to-day workflow, not have as much time. And I think you can really show your value for your potential employer that, you have an awareness of this and you're coming prepared, ready to, help the firm stay up to date in this, new phase that I'm sure we're going to be seeing over the next 4 years. I know a lot of people tend to put the brakes on and, I've seen that, but I will say my discussions at firms throughout the country, it's not something it's not on the radar. And I do see this continuing to, become a larger impact as things move forward. And I think it's important for students to stay up on that and really understand where law is going in that respect.
Yeah, here, take this in two different. I'm going to break that into two different chunks because what you said is really important. One of which is, I mean, I say like sales skills are really important for lawyers, and that is definitely a message that I have. I don't care if you're doing internal tax code regulation stuff or you're trying to do what we do and try personal injury cases. Like sales matters a ton, and everything in between. What are good sales skills? Like what is like somebody who's good at sales, like what is it that they do?
I'm going to have an interesting answer here because I think this is often extremely true, which is, a lot of people, going to high school, you're going to undergrad, especially, a lot of the great attorneys, they very eager to jump in. They jump straight into law school. They're very busy with work. And, there's a certain aspect of just becoming very comfortable with yourself, very comfortable reaching out to people that you haven't spoken to, comfortable giving straight, honest feedback in a way that's, has that etiquette that's going to be required, but also really just putting yourself out there and just being comfortable about it, being someone that appears to be comfortable in your own skin. I think, a lot of students, it's hard to develop putting yourself in pressure situations or putting yourself out there in something that, may otherwise have made you feel apprehensive. I think it's really just getting over all of that and being someone that can participate in the community, attend events, start to make connections, really meet people. Because, in the practice, my goal is to become, somewhat of a subject matter expert on whatever I end up practicing in, and really being able to voice that and, participate in my community that's practicing in that law and becoming a member that people know and people could reach out to and developing that network. I think a lot of it is just exposure. It's about becoming comfortable and starting to see that is really something that's very productive for your career. But, again, if you don't have much exposure to that, I can only say my first couple years in sales, that is something you have to get over. It's a skill that you have to develop. And I think that it's definitely a very valuable thing for attorneys to develop throughout their careers. And that's something I was really focused on trying to get prior to joining a firm, having been on, so many sales teams in my life here.
So, all right, I'm gonna break down something. We're not gonna talk
Yeah.
legal tech, okay?
Yeah.
I can tell you're good at sales, and yes, confidence, going out there, connecting with people in the community, getting rejected over and over, and learning how to deal with that rejection is important. But I'm gonna break this down in even a more micro level for folks out there listening. I've got a case for Apple AirPods. Apple AirPods are in your ears as well as we talk.
Yeah.
Say I am a customer on the fence about Apple AirPods. I don't know if they're for me. How do you move me to buy Apple AirPods?
I'd probably ask about your day to day. What do you do? I mean, are you a professional? Are you someone that likes to work out? Are you someone that is a music enjoyer, a podcast enjoyer? Do you commute? Really what it is that you're going to be using them for. And then just, especially with something like AirPods, which is a lucky one, you have the ability to then provide sort of market insight. Why is this a product that people are adopting? What has been the outcome in that regard?
So
And a lot
I'm
of
gonna stop.
times, yeah,
I'm gonna interrupt you. I'm gonna pause you here, okay? Because
yeah,
this is so important. This could be the most valuable moment. If I do 100 episodes, this could be the most valuable part of it, okay?
yeah.
You said I'm gonna try to find out about you. Are you professional? Do you like to work out? Why do you want to know that? Why is that the first step in your process?
Really, because the exchange of information is helping the conversation anyway. Anyone that is potentially going to buy a product, let's say it's legal services or even AirPods, is going to want to know that you have an understanding, that you're not just eager to sell them things. Now, AirPods as a product might be a little bit more, commoditized than like a legal service, but just knowing that you're talking to someone who wants to understand your situation, has a market awareness of that situation, and can really just inform you on what the benefit of, let's say, AirPods would be. Now, a lot of times, some of my best sales I've ever made, it's through that informative selling, which is learning about them, learning about their past and what they want their future to be, and advising them on similar situations that exist, how these products are applied, how they're deployed, in the respect to any legal technology, how firms use it, what really is the bottom line for why they use it, why they continue to use it moving forward. But a lot of times sales doesn't have to end in like a close right away. A lot of times it is developing an informative relationship where you'll hear back. You might follow up. Hey, it's 2 weeks later. I have a question about the AirPods. You said that if you work, it's going to be helpful for Zoom calls because you can, especially with the AirPod, the new ones, you can mute out the background noise. Developing that relationship where you're coming at it from a consultative approach, where you're always available, you're knowledgeable about their situation, and you can advise them moving forward. It really builds that trust. And ultimately, if that person's going to move forward with a product such as AirPods, you're going to be their person that they're going to be looking to because you understand them, their situation, and what they're looking to accomplish.
Yeah, and so I'm gonna take it a little bit bigger scale on that than you, and where
Yeah.
it gets to with legal argument, where it gets to working with employees, project management, anything. What you're really saying is it begins with empathy. It begins with empathy, and you're saying like because look, if you're like, hey, these are the greatest things to work out, and I don't work out, like gone, right? So it starts with understanding the needs of somebody else, that
Mm-hmm.
somebody else could be a client, that somebody else could be a judge, it could be a jury, it could be a defense lawyer. So anytime I'm in a room and I'm trying to mediate a case or resolve a case, I do an empathy analysis. Like what does everybody need here? What do they want here? Why are they taking this position? What can they live with? What can they live without? And so when we jury try cases, like the number one thing that we try to do is have immense empathy for our jurors, because our jurors are busy. Like they've got lives, they work jobs, like they may be a little bit excited to serve on a jury, but by and large, like their time is valuable and they know it and they're busy, right? And so we try to have empathy by saying, how can we make this as quick as possible? How can we give them as little as possible? How can we be as concise as possible so they're not waiting for us to call witnesses? Because juries get incredibly mad when lawyers are like, I don't know where my next witness is, or can we end early, or they appear to be fumbling around for exhibits. Like it is an act of empathy in the sales process. We are trying to convince a jury to see our side of the case. And one of the ways we do it is really just by putting ourselves in their shoes. And the same with a judge. Most often judges, if you're trying to sell them, the thing that they can live with making a ruling. That's not a problem. That's why they became a judge. They don't want to be appealed. And they don't want to be told by an appellate court that they are wrong. So as you're trying to persuade a judge, you're like, here's why this is the safe thing. The appellate court will support you on ruling in my favor, not just I'm right, because you really need to start with empathy, because then you can empower through education, I think, in a sales process.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, from my perspective, what I often say is that in the sales, let's call it a sales conversation, because, at the base, a lot of this is what it is. The excitement should be placed on that empathy or that discovery, right? Finding out more. That's where you should show your excitement. You don't want to so much lead with the excitement of the product or the close or getting them the product. You want all of your interest and excitement to be placed on understanding them, how you can accommodate, how you can best provide them with what they need, whether that's information, services, whatever it is. But I think exhibiting that excitement in that portion of the conversation and really keeping your focus there, the product, in whether we're talking about legal services or AirPods or technology, the product really that is understood. It's something that's why we're having the discussion, and it's understood. And I always think that the excitement is best placed when you're talking in getting to know them, building the relationship, adhering to, things that they need to be done in a certain way. And I think when you show that, they start to understand that, they have someone there that's got their best interest in mind, that's, has a good business practice as far as etiquette's concerned. And you develop that trust that's going to be required for any next step to even, go in the way that you'd like it to go.
Yeah, and so this is like, look, we could end the episode right here. And if you got nothing else out of it other than, this basic sales 101 that's going to play out throughout your career, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's like if you get out and you work for a partner, like, what does the partner need? The partner, if you're going to empathize with them, wants their life to be made easier. So I'm giving you this project so I don't have to do it. And if you're trustworthy and you're making my life more, easier, that's fantastic for your career. And if you're complicating it because I'm like, I don't know, and I've got to trust, I've got to do more work, then that's not there. So, really begin with how it is that you want to persuade. So, all right, enough about sales, enough about legal tech. Usually we begin and sort of almost end the conversation. So what makes you go to law school? When do you decide? How long have you been out of Holy Cross? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I graduated in 2017 from Holy Cross. So I've been out for, 6 years now. And, I always had a start target early 2020s because I did want to get my feet under me, live in the professional world, start to understand certain areas of the law, because I've had a good breadth of exposure to different types of firms. And so I could start to understand what I'm interested in. And, in that time period, it was very, very helpful. I mean, COVID happened, which was interesting to see how that impacted a lot of philosophy surrounding my market of interest, which is practice technology and specifically investigations and discovery, and heading into the new big bad world of data that's going to be coming soon as Gen Z arrives into the professional world with all of the new avenue streams that will have to be, identified, collected, and reviewed. So my goal really was to get a good grasp on that, develop industry contacts that could be of value to me moving forward, meeting leaders throughout that industry, bending their ear. Oftentimes I'll even mention on calls, that I'm in law school myself. So if I get someone that's, very high level with an impressive background, I'll get some of their thoughts. And I've been doing that for so many years at this point that it's really helped me just come to law school prepared for what I know I want to do, and with the confidence that I can go out and do it, by just going through the process to the best of my ability.
So what is it that you want to do when you get out of law school?
Well, I'm very interested in litigation. Primarily, I've been in discovery for years at this point, and I've seen extremely interesting things happening there, and the problems that are starting to arise from the amount of data sources that exist and are growing and continuing to expand every year. So, it's sort of one thing I did want to do in my period of not being in law school and being in the professional world is identify an area of need within law that I saw as a growing issue that is going to have to be addressed through knowledge and, attorneys that are well equipped to handle those problems. Now, you could go through more of a sort of a statutory analysis, find laws that are going to, maybe start to become more of a litigated area of practice. But, in my respect, I found that through the technology aspect and what concerns are starting to come up heading into, 2030 and beyond, really, because I'm trying to have a long view of where I should fit in and how I'm going to best be able to provide unique value that would set me apart and really make the degree worthwhile, make my experience worthwhile, and help in the employment, just practical skills that, I think are going to be in demand as we move forward.
You say you work with a lot of law firms. What is it that the best law firms that you see, what is it that sets them apart?
I would say two things: serious interest in innovating, and then very comprehensive analysis. And I would say to some extent, being not slow to the uptake, but being very deliberate in the uptake of any innovation, because the practices that I deal with are innovating fast, but the best teams, they have an extremely strong awareness of what's out there, what's working, what isn't, the timing on when to make switches, and just an overall strong understanding of the competitive landscape, not being firms that, aren't instituting certain tools that end up saving their clients 10% on their case, which I often see. Just, really being involved, but also being apprehensive and deliberate as far as decisions go, but not closing off. Because some firms I will find think that tech is sort of overblown and it's not something that needs to be too heavily thought about or invested in. I don't think that's a great approach, but I also have bumped into firms before that might try to do too much. So I think it's really having a strong understanding of dedicated people at the firm that are going to be those sources of knowledge, but then also very considerate and deliberate, understandings of how processes should be and can be innovated.
And that speaks to something. And look, if you're in law school, I mean, the goal is always to be the best lawyer you could be. And it's a huge learning curve to get there. It takes years in practice. I sometimes think or suggest that it takes about 10 years to figure that out. It's a lot of hours. But what you need to know is, if you're out there, don't just waste all your training and smarts and skills that you've picked up in law school and just only apply them to law. The most successful firms apply those very same things: the analytical thinking, the testing, the analysis, the feedback. They apply it to their business practices as well, and they move intentionally. And the very firms that I know will go extinct, they will be wiped off the face of the earth, are ones where they only sort of they may even be good lawyers, but they're focused on, I'm applying my mind, my critical thinking skills, my efforts, all to just working on a case. And meanwhile, their business is on fire. And in order to do great legal work, your business needs to have a very solid foundation. So I believe those things to my core. What you said about the firms being intentional and open and communicative and deliberate, those are all things that good lawyers do. So apply those things to your business practice. And look, when I say business, everybody who does not work for a government agency as a lawyer is in their own business. You are running a business, whether you know it, you like it. There is a profit margin attached to your work. There are systems, there is marketing, there's your survival will largely depend upon your ability to generate results and also generate new clients for whatever it is that you're doing. So don't just take those skills, those writing skills, and say, keep them to your briefs. Write some stuff on LinkedIn, post some stuff. If you're you're a very charismatic, person or whatever, take this doing some videos. Don't just save that for the courtroom, and that's going to carry you pretty far.
That is the exact attitude that firms that I would deem as very good firms for the future, have a great path ahead of them, that is the attitude that they, subsume. And in my discussions with them, that's what they apply. They apply sort of legal thinking to how they're going to approach business. They're very, they're open to what they don't understand, and they are very good at adjusting, digesting information, seeing how it can apply to the situation at hand for them. And I think that is extremely true. Even with just communication overall. I mean, it's something attorneys do develop throughout practice and even in school in some points. And it's, again, I think that does marry up with the sales marketing aspect well, because, you do develop skills as far as clear communication, all those aspects. And I think that it is important to really promote those outside of just the actual specific practice of law. You're really a holistic individual at these firms, and you want to make sure that you're, taking care of all aspects of, that are not just subject just to the, the law at hand that you're working with.
Awesome. Yeah. So this has been like fantastic. I mean, usually I talk about what is law school like, what is, what are you doing? I think I can not talk about this here, because I think there's so much regarding your story, talking about sales, talking about legal business, that it is so valuable. And, really, I'm talking to you and I'm just like, man, like in 10 years, I'm going to see you on LinkedIn and you're going to have blown something up. I mean, like in a good way, not in like a bad way.
Yeah.
No, but you're approaching it the right way. Your skill set of sales and project management and technology are really the skills that are vital to future success in law. I don't see any two ways around it. So Shane, if somebody wants to get in contact with you, what's the best way to do that?
The best way to reach me, frankly, would be LinkedIn first and foremost. And I'm Shane Crowley. You can filter for Boston. You'll find me assuredly. And then also via email. I can be reached at Shane Crow, CROW94@gmail.com.
And your classmate, Maximo, I did his interview last week. And I had gone some time. We put on a conference up in Boston. We put on $100 million Day, took up a lot of my energy, was very successful, but I wasn't able to get to the podcast as much as I can. So I'm trying to catch up and do some episodes as we wind down 20.
Hey, and congrats on that too.
Thank you. Trying to get to trying to do some stuff, but I would always end the episodes with this one question, and Maximo was prepared for it, and I didn't ask the question. I was out of shape, I guess, in my podcast host duties here. And so he said it like after the Zoom, after we stopped hitting the record button. So I said to him, I said, I'm not gonna look. I am so sorry. Your episode's gonna be like one of one, where I'm not gonna ask. Okay, so you'll have the special episode, but I will ask Shane and everybody going forward. You're at a picnic, and whatever kind of burger, it could be a veggie burger, hamburger, I don't care, burger. Okay.
Yep.
What condiments are you putting on your burger? What is your ideal? You've got a spread, anything you can imagine is on the table. What are you putting on your burger as the perfect condiments?
The most atypical: lettuce, tomato, onion, and I would do ketchup and mustard.
Nothing wrong with that. Classic as can be.
Yeah, extremely. I've switched throughout my life, but I'm back on the classic at this point. So that's the answer that's true for me now.
Well, Shane, thank you very much. I hope you enjoy a delicious burger, delicious sort of classic American hamburger. Throw some cheese on there. You got a good time. I hope you have good holidays, and thank you so much.
Yeah, you as well. Thank you so much, Ryan. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining Ryan McKeen in the Law Student Lounge, where real law students talk about their real lives. Are you a law student with a story to tell? Learn how you can share your story with us in the episode description. And join us next time in the Law Student Lounge.